today we're going to look at an alternative platform for selling your antiques and vintage, and it's called Vintage Cash Cow. I saw it advertised and thought, well, could be a good opportunity to move on a lot of my job lot stock and inventory that I've built up over the last 12 months or so when I've been buying at auctions. So, so basically I responded to the advertisement that I saw. I think it was online, and basically had this come through on my mobile phone. Hopefully you can read that. It's not flickering. And it says, Vintage Cash Cow, the easy way to sell your old items in one go. Pack up your old valuables into a box, send them for free and receive a no obligation offer for the lot. To get started, order your free postage pack. And then there's a free phone number that you can ring. And obviously this is in the UK. If you're an international viewer or subscriber and you've got something similar, let me know all about it, or let the community know all about it in the comments below. So I phoned them up, and sure enough, 2 or 3 days later, envelope arrived in the post. As you can see, Vintage Cash Cow. Box it, send it, sell it. Simple as that. And the envelope contains little introductory pamphlet with the instructions. And bottom line is, it's really simple. All you need to do is pull together your inventory or stock you want to send them, which we'll see in the second half of this video, what I'm sending. Box it up, and they send you free shipping labels. There you go. And they also send you, at the bottom of the kind of welcome letter, if you like, the sender details, which are down there, and they're self-adhesive as well. So once you've packed your antiques and vintage that you want to send in the box, you just need to stick the sender details on the outside of the box, and obviously the free shipping label. There you go. Right. So in theory, it's as simple as that. Also, in the welcome pack you get, it's got all the instructions, which tells you sort of, well, why Vintage Cash Cow, all the usual stuff you'd expect, to be honest, and all the instructions very clearly laid out about what you do and how you go about sending off your box to get your quote. And I should point out at this point, I have absolutely no affiliation with this company whatsoever. This is just a little review film that I thought you might find interesting to see how I get on sending off all my job lot stock that I've built up. So it's a really good little brochure, and it tells you what they take, what they don't take. And for example, I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail. You can send off for the pack yourself if you're in the UK, and obviously you can read through it. But for example, they don't accept glass or ceramics or, guns and things like that. So it's really clear and you can't go wrong. And as a little bonus, you also get this £20, what would you call it? A kind of a gift, £20 gift. What would you call it? Anyway, basically, can I waffle about this any longer? Probably not. Basically, if you recommend Vintage Cash Cow to a friend, and you can tear that off and send it to them, and they then use the service, then they will get £20 and you will get, or I would get £20 as well. So that's a little £20 bonus gift that they include. On the basis you can get a friend or a relative, whatever, to use the company. And you get a nice sticker, which, again, if some of you, hopefully most of you, will think back to my old workshop, I've got the cabinets with all the stickers on, so that'll go on. That'll fill up a nice big space on one of my metal cabinets. Right, so there you go. That's what you get in the welcome pack. And the bottom line is, all you have to do is, once you've got your pack, is get an old box, pile all your inventory into the box that you want to send to them, put your labels on, either arrange a collection or take it to the post office. Make sure you get the printed receipt as well for insurance purposes. It's all free. Off it goes. They then have a whole panel of experts in antiques and vintage that assess the contents of your box, and they'll make you an offer within 2 or 3 days of receiving it. You have two choices. You can either accept the offer or decline it. If you accept the offer, then the amount of money that you've accepted gets paid straight into your bank account within a day or two. It might vary a little bit, but it's very quickly. If you decline the offer, then they send your box of antiques and vintage back to you completely free of charge. So, what have I got to lose? I've got my e-commerce website, which is antiquescentral.co.uk. I do sell occasionally at fairs and markets, but I don't sell on eBay anymore. And to be quite honest, I've found that selling at the fleas and the antique fairs, that buyers in the current economic climate anyway aren't looking to spend that much. So I thought, well, and also, of course, you've got your table fee. So as an overhead at the start of the day, any antique fair or market that you sell at, you're going to have a table fee, and that could be anything from sort of, well, obviously it'll vary where in the country you're selling and what particular market, but round here by me, it can vary from sort of 30 up to £60 per day for a couple of 6-foot tables. So you've got that overhead on your profits straight away. So effectively, with Vintage Cash Cow, it seems to me you're sending it off for free. They'll give you some money. So if you add that 30 or 40 to what they offer you, then you've got some kind of comparison compared to what you would have needed to sell them for at a fair, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. If it doesn't, leave a comment below and I'll do my best to answer it. Right. So what we'll do now is we'll have a look at the items that I'm going to send to them. Now, first of all, got my box ready. There you go. Actually, that is a new box, but it's the only one I had about this size. So, a nice sturdy box. That's important. Always make sure your box is sturdy and well taped as well, so it can survive the rigours of the Royal Mail Parcel Force. Now, the other thing I do is, you don't have to do this. I did check with them, but I've actually listed off the inventory that is going in the box just for the record. So that'll go with all the stock I'm sending. And don't forget, this is all stock that I got from job lot boxes. Well, the majority of it, probably 99% of it, is from job lot boxes I've got at auction. So if I was after a particular item and it happened to be in a box with 6 or 7 other small items, then they came along with it, and I won it, of course. They came along with it, and I'm sort of stuck with them, and some of them are quite old friends, which is the term in the trade that means that you've sort of been living with some of these items for quite a while, so it's absolutely time they were moved on. A copper candlestick, and it's copper because it would have been the base metal for silver plating. It is certainly vintage, if not antique. So it's a nice little copper candlestick. Next up, we have a brass tankard. And again, this is, it's probably less likely it was going to be silver plated, but it could have been. But in fact, looking at the base, yeah, I would say that was silver plated. So it's now pretty well worn back to its brass base metal. So nice little tankard. This is probably the most modern item I'm sending, and it's a little pin dish, and it's a tourist souvenir, vintage tourist souvenir from Cape Town. So as you can see on the, if that focuses or not. Anyway, it's a little pin dish, vintage from Cape Town. And it's probably silver plated, I would say. Pair of miniature brass candlesticks, and they are matching. A matching pair, and these could be used, I suppose, in a doll's house or some sort of diorama, or they can be used for, the little candles that you put on your birthday cake. As you can imagine, how many of those I've got, or I have on my next birthday cake anyway. So yeah, nice little vintage pair of brass candlesticks. Silver plated tankard, and it's got an inscription on it. You can see that. And it says Radford Samel Rifle Club, 1962, 1963. So certainly a vintage silver plated tankard there. Little trophy probably from the Rifle Club. Here we have an angle poise desk lamp, and I believe it's it's definitely angle poise, and I think it's number 99. That's the model number. Pretty sure. Yeah, model 99. It was pat tested, and it is working. Now, you might be asking, why isn't this going on the antiquecentral.co.uk website? It's because I don't sell electrical items on the website. So this will go off to Vintage Cash Cow, and we'll see what they make of it. But it is working, and it was pat tested a year or so ago. Although, obviously, if they were going to move it on and sell it, they'd have to pat test it themselves anyway. So that's probably the biggest item that I'm sending. Next up is a copper. You can see from that nice deep reddish brown colour water jug. And why am I selling this? Trying to sell it to Vintage Cash Cow, not putting it on the website. Well, it's had repairs to it. So there's a soldered repair around the neck, and there's also a soldered repair, if you can see that, probably, just about there on the inside of the spout, and the handle is pretty knocked up as well. So that's a good example of, it's not quite up to the standard I want on my website. Now, it's also important to mention that Vintage Cash Cow do take broken metalware or damage, because they can weigh it in basically, or sell it for scrap, or get it repaired, I suppose, depends on the value of the item. So although that is basically repaired, damaged, they'll still accept it in theory. Next we have an antique brass kettle, the lid, and an early form of plastic handle. It's not Bakelite, obviously, but again, I'm sending it to Vintage Cash Cow because there is some damage to the handle. So it can't go on my website. Pretty dinted. It's got a load of dints and dents. There is a mark on the bottom. JC. So out of interest, I may well just look that up, but that's definitely going to Vintage Cash Cow. Quite decorative. People display dried flowers in them. We'll see what they make of it. There's a lot of metalware, which you'd expect if you follow my channel. And here we have a small copper water jug. It would have been used in a pub or a bar back in the day. This could well be antique. And not quite so fashionable now. And it is marked on the bottom, Weber or Weber ware, made in England. It's quite a nice little water jug. And I'm thinking, well, that possibly would almost have made it onto the website. But value-wise, I'm trying to keep everything on the website over £20. And I don't think I would have got £20 for that online. So off it goes to Vintage Cash Cow. This is quite an interesting item. It's a scorpion spoon. Now, I've seen these for sale online on eBay as christening spoons and gift spoons, where the reality is, as far as I understand it, that they were used when taking illicit substances. So, in other words, you would pour or place your illicit substance into the spoon and you would heat it from below. And that's the actual use of them. So all these babies getting these as christening spoons, well, I'll leave you to make your mind up about that. And you can actually see on the base where it's been over a flame. So that kind of backs up my my belief. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments below. And again, I've seen these for a reasonable amount of money online, but also going for next to nothing. So I thought I'd send it off to Vintage Cash Cow and see what they say. Now, I don't think you get individual prices for each item as far as I'm aware. That'll be a really interesting thing to find out. And I'll let you know in the follow-up film where we get the offer. But I think you'll probably get one job lot offer, I would imagine. But I might be wrong. And trust me, that's happened before. So next we have, it's another, I won't dwell on these, another pair of miniature brass candlesticks. And here we have a little pin dish or trinket dish and solid brass, antique, and it's a horse's head. You can make out the horse's head. There you go. So quite a nice little decorative item. It's not meant for hanging on the wall or on a strap because it's got three little feet on the back, on the reverse. So it will just sit on your desk. I don't know. You could put your pins in it, or you could put your car keys on it, or whatever. Put anything you like on it. Once you own it, you can do what you want with it. Next up, we have and this is old. Date-wise, I would say early 20th century, silver-plated chamber stick. And it would have had a little snuffer. You can see where it would have stood there. Well, that's missing. And as with the majority of these items, I'll pick them up for nothing as part of job lots. So it doesn't owe me anything at all, really. But it's substantial, heavy. And I would definitely say early part of the 20th century. Been well used. Maybe sort of 1910, that kind of period. Again, apologies if you can hear drilling in the background. That's the builders hard at work on my workshop conversion. So nice little, they sell well, these chamber sticks. They're quite decorative, but it wouldn't have the value for the website. Next up, we have a galleried brass tray, Indian. It's engraved. Probably can't pick this up, but you might. just about, there you go. It is engraved with a floral design, nothing much to it. Would have been silver plated, I think. And I think there are, if you look carefully enough, you'll see some remnants of the old silver plate. Quality-wise, not there really. It's a nice galleried tray. If it was pristine mint condition, yeah, it'd be on the website. But in its current condition, no chance. And it's not going to sell even at a flea market. This, I would imagine, and I might be wrong, that this would just be weighed in for its scrap value. Here we have a mid-century. It's Scandinavian. In fact, it's Denmark, and it's a little candle holder. Typical of the mid-century modern design, but they're 10 a penny, really, these are. So, although you might think that's a nice, attractive, and wow, Danish, Scandinavian, mid-century, it's going to be worth a lot of money. Trust me, it's not. So that's heading to the cash car. Here's a little Middle Eastern brass slipper. But it's actually a cigarette ashtray. That's what I mean, an ashtray. And there's the little groove where you'd put your where you put your cigarette. Bit of engraving around the edge. Interesting, decorative little item. Not really worth much at all, but I thought I'd put it into the pile. And here we have a miniature copper kettle paperweight. Now, there's a funny story with this. This was the last item I sold on eBay, in my eBay shop. And if you check my website, you can see the kind of descriptions I do in the photographs. I never do less than 12 photos, and the description's probably over-detailed. And it really summarised what this was. So it's a decorative, miniature, copper kettle with no lid as such. It's totally sealed, the lid. Height, I think, well, I put down, I think it's, without measuring it, it was about 6 centimetres. Sold it. Took an offer of something ridiculous, like about £4. Off it went. 3 weeks later, I'll get a return raised on eBay with a message from the buyer saying he thought it was a 2-pint copper kettle for £4 that was 6 centimetres high, and you can't take the lid off. And I'll be honest with you, that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me with eBay. And that was the point I thought, right, I've had it with eBay. So here we are. It's an old friend, and it's going to the cash cow. And we'll see what they make of it. And if you think that's a funny story about that copper kettle, miniature copper kettle, if you've had any funny eBay stories, then let me know in the comments below, because I'd love to hear them. It just seems to be happening more and more now. Here we have a miniature fire guard, as far as I'm aware. I think that's what it is. Maybe for your doll's house again. Would it have been silver plated as a decorative gift? Don't know. No idea. I can't see any remnants of the silver plate. So, yeah, a little miniature brass fire guard for a doll's house or diorama of some description. Little miniature brass tankard. Now, I think this is a measure. Handmade, engraved in the bottom, on the bottom. If you can see that at all. Yeah, just about catch it in the light. That says handmade. So, art is handmade. Miniature tankard, probably a measure. Is it a single measure, would you say? So, interesting little item, but not valuable enough to go on the website, the Antique Central website. So, I hope you're getting a good idea of the sort of stock and inventory that I'm actually sending to them. It's all antique, genuine antique or vintage, but just doesn't fit the bill of what I'm selling at the moment. Here's a lovely little silver-plated shell tray, or shell dish, I should say. There's no maker's mark on it that I can see. It's an attractive little piece. I'm wondering if I should test it to make sure it's not silver. So I probably will test it before I send it. It's a lovely little item, actually. Again, I just wouldn't get the money for it on my website that I need. Little dolphin feet. So it's got something about it. Antique, I would say. Turn of the century. But off it goes. Next up, we have an open barley twist. That's the design. And they call it open because you can see straight through it. So a barley twist would be a solid stem, twisted stem, whereas this is open, as you can see through it. And you might be thinking, well, that's got some value. Well, it has. It has got some value, and I will later today be listing a similar one on the Antique Central website. But this one, when you stand it up, there's one particular position. You probably won't be able to see it the way I'm holding it, but it basically leans. It leans to the one side. So it's not something I want to sell on the website. What they make of it at Vintage Cash Cow, what the expert makes of it, I don't know. Whether they would just weigh it in for scrap or whether they would sell it, I don't know. But the one thing for sure, and I've had so much experience of this, is if I try to straighten that in a vise, it's going to snap. It will snap and it will just be total write-off. It's cast, you can see on the bottom, so it's not turned. So there's no huge age to it, I don't think, but it's probably 20th century, early 20th century, that kind of period. And it's going to the cash cow or vintage cash cow because it leans. So it's got a defect with it, really. Now, next up, this is an interesting piece. And again, you might be thinking, why am I sending this off in a bargain box? Or a box of bits and pieces? And it's an Art Nouveau brush pot or a vase for dried flowers. And you can see the floral, typical Art Nouveau carving design. Quite intricate. It's also chip carved a little bit as well. Chip carved is when you chip into the top layer of wood to reveal a slightly different colour below. Now, why is this going in the box of bits and pieces? Well, because in the past it's had woodworm. It's long gone now, and I've treated it as well, to be quite honest, because I was considering putting it on the website. So it's been literally bathed in woodworm killer. But it was long dead before then, to be quite honest. And the way you tell is there's no sawdust. All the holes, the little pinholes, were all black. There's nothing fresh, no fresh holes in it. But if I hold it up, I don't know whether you can see, you can probably just see a few holes in the bottom. That's where most of the woodworm, or the evidence of woodworm, is. And also there's a few pinholes on a couple of the sides as well. So I'm not going to put it on the website because of the woodworm holes. I just don't want to run the risk of it, a person receiving it and then freaking out, oh my God, it's got woodworm, even though it hasn't, sending it back. It's not good for the website. It's not good for my reputation. So this is going off to Vintage Cash Cow, and they can, if they want to make an offer, great. If not, well, they can keep it, to be quite honest. So it would have been a lovely item, and probably if without the woodworm, 30 to 40 pounds, that sort of value. But with the woodworm, or the old woodworm, some people say, well, it's antique, so it doesn't matter. But for me, I don't want to be selling stuff with woodworm, evidence of woodworm. Nice little copper tankard. No maker's mark as such. It's also tin lined inside, which makes it more hygienic. Was possibly could well have been used originally back in the day to drink out of. Because if you think about it nowadays, we have tin cans, don't we? Store food because it must be more hygienic in some ways. I don't know why. So that's tin lined, as you can see on the inside. A nice little copper tankard, and just not of sufficient value to go on the website. So that's going. This is probably scrap value only. Little arts and crafts period dish, pin tray, whatever you want to call it, catch-all, hammered, hand hammered. You can see all the indentations of the hammer where they've beaten it into that shape. So it is handmade, but the patina is shot in a couple of places. You get the green verdigris. So this is just going, probably be weighed in for scrap. This is a copper and brass water pitcher, or water jug, or possibly for oil even. It's got a couple of dints and dents in it, but it's obviously got a replacement handle, which is really spindly, thin, and I just wouldn't want that on my website. So it's got a brass spout, copper body, and a brass pedestal base. As a decorative item, it may have some value, but it's not for me, so off it goes. Finally, we have the remains of what I think is a Victorian or possibly Georgian toast rack. Pewter, heavy, but I think it would originally have sat on a base. But it would still function as a toast rack, and I just think it's a little survivor, but I've got a feeling this will probably be scrapped, be weighed in for its scrap value. But when you think that's possibly be up to 200 years old, then little survivor, and I hope it doesn't get scrapped, but I don't hold out much hope for it, to be quite honest. So there you go, that's the lot. I think it's about 30 items. As I said, I've got the list that will go, the inventory list that will go in the box. It's going to be sent off probably tomorrow, probably here back by maybe the middle of next week. So it depends how long it takes for the post office to get the box to them, I suppose. So we'll hear back from them, see what offer they come in with, and what I will do is I'll print off a copy of the inventory and I will write on it what I hope to get for this collection of 30 items. And then we'll see how close the offer is. I'm going to be totally realistic. I know what I paid for all these things, which is next to nothing. So we'll see what they come back with the offer, and we can compare it to what I am hoping to get. And I'll be quite honest and upfront with you. And I think, that'll just be perhaps of interest to anybody who is thinking of trying vintage cash cow with their bits and pieces that they've got that they want to sell on. So there you go. That is this week's video. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a little bit different to the normal. We'll follow it up with the results next week, which will be interesting for everybody. I don't think I'll be retiring on the proceeds, but it all adds up, and it will clear out. We'll start to clear out some boxes of old stock that I've been carrying around now for ages. And with the new workshop refurbishment, I don't want all this stuff taking up space. Time to move it on. Hope you enjoyed the film. As ever, to support our little channel and join our community, like, comment, share, subscribe, shout about it from the rooftops, but most important of all, as ever, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.